So really like learning to scrape actually came out of just being early at a startup, being scrappy. I think like the number one thing I'd like to have you guys realize is that there is like so much at your fingertips with a Google search. For like a lot of this stuff actually isn't like incredibly difficult. And a lot of what I did is just spent my time like figuring out, okay, here's this big process that we want to get after. How do I break it down and make it so that I'm just tackling one little issue at a time and then iterating every week? Yeah, just a little background on myself. It's kind of weird being the web scraping guy because I'm actually not an engineer. I'm not really technical at all. Everything technical that I know I've taught myself, just kind of like banging my head against the wall. So really like learning to scrape actually came out of just being early at a startup, being scrappy. My background's in enterprise sales, not even really in marketing, so even when people call me like a growth person, most people kind of consider that to be on like the internet marketing side of things, paid acquisitions, etc. That's also not really me, but I do think that I excel at kind of like operational type things and making processes work really well and all that. And so I'm going to just walk you through some of the stuff that I did while I was at Storefront. As it relates to kind of like the takeaways tonight, I think like the number one thing I'd like to have you guys realize is that there is like so much at your fingertips with a Google search. For like a lot of this stuff actually isn't like incredibly difficult. And a lot of what I did is just spent my time like figuring out, okay, here's this big process that we want to get after. How do I break it down and make it so that I'm just tackling one little issue at a time and then iterating every week? That's another thing that was a really big learning here, is like this started off as like, okay, we're doing sales, we're doing tons of outreach, we're reaching out to small businesses. Actually, let me just back up real quick. So Storefront, what we were doing is making it so that retailers could find short-term space. So like small retailers all the way up to big retailers. Traditionally, commercial real estate makes you sign like a 5 to 10 year lease. In fact, that doesn't make a lot of sense for most businesses. It's not fiscally responsible, which is probably why a lot of those businesses go out of business in the first place. So what we were trying to do is kind of like the Airbnb for retail, for Valley folks that want to keep track of those things. So at the beginning of my job there, my task was just get a lot of inventory on the site. And let's make the site look credible. You can't really be a marketplace if you have like 10 listings. So I started just like cold outreach, meeting with people, doing face-to-face meetings, which was great at first. And then we got to the point where it's like, okay, now we have enough on our site that we can send somebody to the site and they're like, okay, yeah, I can see why, I want to upload on my own and like be more self-service. So that's when we decided to switch to more of like an inside sales-ish kind of model. I read this book called Predictable Revenue, and if you in the sales category or do anything with sales, and actually just in general, if you're a marketer too, it might be good to read. It's about this guy named Aaron Ross who's at Salesforce, and basically his contention was that like you can take the sales process and split it up into really specialized categories, and people do better at their jobs. And the account executives that you pay the big bucks and the commission and stuff like that, you don't want them spending their time prospecting for leads. So that was the original problem I was trying to solve, is like, how do I stop prospecting for leads, because that costs the company way more money than the value it delivers. So we started off by just paying people overseas on Odesk to go manually look up stuff for us, but then we figured out that there was a couple different ways around it. So one of them is Import.io, and that's what my whole course is on. It's great because it allows non-technical folks to do some scraping, and I'll show you that. I'm going to show you also 2 other different things that are also basically non-technical that you'll be able to use as well. But that's originally what this came out of. So it's not like I set out to be like, I'm going to scrape the web. It had nothing to do with that. It was mostly that I needed to solve a problem, which was that I was spending way too much time researching leads. So that's why I did it. Yeah, it's also kind of weird being known as like the scraping guy now, because I'm also not an engineer as well. So it's just weird. It's like I'm like the guy who got like a public intox or something like that and defended himself in court and is now like known as the legal guy or something. It's super weird. The truth is that most engineers out there could probably do what I do in like 20 or 30 minutes. Let's see, is there anything else I want to talk about? No, I think that's about it. So I'm going to show you guys 3 different examples, and because this is like, it's somewhat visual, what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to talk through some stuff, and then I'm going to send out, Nate's going to send out an email later on, and it'll have some kind of instructions. You guys can repeat the process. So one of the first things that I want to show you guys is that there's actually a scraper that's somebody built into Google Docs. Now, if you're a Google Sheets expert, you know that there's also like import XML and some other import functions where you can get data into a spreadsheet. This is a spreadsheet by Seer Interactive, and their basic focus is SEO and auditing Google searches, etc. So they created this spreadsheet, which can be used in a lot of different ways. The last time I used it, it looks like I was looking up iTunes podcasts that related to marketing. My friend Justin Mayers is launching Traction Book here coming up, so I was helping him make a list of the people that we might reach out to. So make sure you buy Traction Book, y'all.
We wanted to play along from home, but is this public?
Yeah, if you search Seer, S-E-R-R, Interactive, and about their Google Scraper, I think this is actually the name Google Scraper 1.2. You could probably find it. So the way that it works is really simple. You just type in keyword like basically a search query in Google. And so the way that I first used this was, I'm like, okay, I want to find all of the sellers that are selling online with Square, and this is after they'd removed the directory from their site and they had later relaunched it as a new product, but I'm like, I want to find everybody that's on Square Market. So I found out what kind of like the first part of the domain was. It was squareup.com/market/whatever. So I put it, first off, I guess I should say, you want to go to google.com and try these searches out to make sure that the query is working. So as you can see, it pulls up a bunch of the different places, or a bunch of the different folks that sell on Square. And so replicate that in here. I think you can change the results to 100. It allows you to change between 10 and 100, and you define .com, and then there's an offset here. And so the offset starts at 10 for page 2. If you do, I think offset 0 is the first page of stuff. But as you can see, it gives you a lot of awesome information. So if you want to keep these, paste them over here. Oops, Google Docs trick. Paste as values only, y'all. It'll save you a lot of pain. So we would use this in the beginning as like the kind of like, you know, repeat yourself, bang your head against the wall manual operation for scraping Google search results. So if you're just doing like, if you're doing something where you're like trying to find maybe the best blogs to reach out to do like a guest post campaign or whatever, traditionally SEO is probably called that a link building campaign, whatever it is, you can use this tool very easily, no technical expertise at all required. Just make sure that you're flipping in between and testing out your different search queries in Google. So that's one thing I'll reiterate is that like scraping and this kind of stuff is definitely going to be about like trial and error, guess and test. It's going to take a while before you figure everything out and you've got it rolling along. So that's the first example of what I wanted to show you guys. Does anybody have any questions about that or why that might be useful?
What was the offset?
So the offset is for changing the pages. So if you go to offset 10, it goes in intervals of 10. If you go to offset 10, that's going to take you to the next page. So you can do this all the way up to 900, I believe, in this spreadsheet. Yeah, it got pretty serious. Any other questions? Woo! All right, first one's done.
All right, let me ask a question.
Yeah, hit me with it, Joel.
Sorry about that. Have you used any other tools like Moz? Moz has some tools that do stuff like this, or BuzzStream?
No. I know of them now, but at the time, no, I did not. So I actually think that it's really funny because a lot of like SEO is like the SEO category is like very far ahead in sales automation, but doesn't get recognized for it a lot. But there are some, like, I think BuzzStream is the one where you can actually build a list of like of blogs create an automated email, and it'll roll through and find any contact information and everything.
Yeah,
right?
it's like this where it'll scrape.
Yeah, no, it's
and then it has
badass.
the CRM
It's badass.
functionality.
I get all this credit for building manually, like kind of like duct taping together that solution, and they had it built already. So I thought that was pretty cool, actually. So what we did is we would get all this contact information out, plus we would get some personalized information, and we would send out massive amount of emails as Storefront. So just like to kind of give you guys context there, I think that also helps as well, is if we were trying to get a hold of like all the coffee shops in a particular neighborhood, we would scrape the shit out of Yelp. We'd get what neighborhood they're in, and we'd say, hey, I know you guys are in Soma. We were curious if you're hosting events. We came across your listing on Yelp. We've had a ton of retailers that are looking to host events in Soma. If you're wondering what that looks like, here's 3 of your neighbors that are on the platform. So we would automatically insert 3 examples of people that were nearby. It has this really high social proof element, and it really was very effective for us in terms of like when I compare myself or compare our performance to other startups. We were a lot more precision, but it was definitely worth it because some of the other folks that I talked to that did kind of like scrape the web, send out emails, they end up with huge deliverability issues and spam issues, etc. We sent hundreds of thousands of emails. We were 0.01% spam rated, so like nearly no one rated us as spam because it felt so personal and one-to-one. And I also think that that's just like a little quick sales lesson too. And this is what I recommend to any of the companies that I'm like working with or consulting for. Is just, hey, like if your economics can afford it, just start a conversation with them. Don't worry about like sending your value prop in the first email. Ask them a question, get them talking to you, and then take it from there. And you can use templates and all this other kind of stuff to speed it up. So, little sales hint too.
What, Reese, you just said don't be scared of sending your value prop in the first email. What do you mean?
No, what I mean is don't worry about sending like the whole like laundry list of things that your app does. So a lot of times I'll get an email to be like, dear Matt, I noticed that you are at Storefront and you guys probably like analytics, and here's 10 reasons why our analytics platform is great. And I don't think that like resonates with nearly anybody. You immediately think, oh, marketing, and your brain turns off. So I'm much more in favor of sending an informal email that feels, keep it short, should be able to read it on your phone. Keep it informal, like make it seem like you reached out of interest, customer development type questions work really well. The further you can get from feeling like a marketing email, probably the better. Unless, there are times where you can do that, where like, if you're reaching out to a CEO over and over and over again, and you kind of like get to that comical stage where you're just like, it's just like, talk to me right now. I'm not going to stop emailing you. And sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. I definitely have done that in the past. I did it to the Instagram CEO right after they got bought, but it didn't work. What's up?
I was just going to piggyback on what you said. I work at Sensor Tower, and whenever a new user signs up, we have this like one-liner that automated gets sent off to them like maybe 45 minutes after they sign up. And it's just like, hey, I'm Wes. Let me know if you need any help. And then it's
totally.
sent from my iPhone.
Definitely.
And like we get so much engagement because people literally think that like I'm sitting there like texting them on the phone.
Oh yeah.
So,
I got tricks. We got tricks. We got tricks here in the West. We got tricks. We can get far on those tricks. All right, guys. So that's this is a Google spreadsheet. It's very easy to use. Play around with it, mess around with it. You'll figure out some cool stuff. And by the way, like check out like spreadsheetbooster.com. This guy named Guido made this really cool Google Apps script that's pretty easy to integrate into this. But what I could do if I wanted to here would be like make some other columns and put in functions that would tell me like what's the Alexa rank of this particular domain that I have in this list, and that becomes useful when you're trying to like prioritize who you might want to reach out to. So if you get good at scraping and you start using some of these things, and you cast a really wide net, you can spend way too much time researching the wrong leads. So you need to figure out kind of like machine-oriented ways to pare things down. Yeah, let's move on. So what I mentioned earlier was that there's a lot of stuff that's just out there and available, and all you have to do is search for it. So if you can get just barely comfortable in like terminal or command line, go on GitHub and search for like pre-made scripts, because there's a lot of really great stuff. So this one's called Google Email Scraper. So you can tell I didn't really have to try too hard keyword-wise to find this one. I searched scraper, this thing came up, and I was like, shit, this is awesome. So here's an example. So in terminal, if you're in the directory, you navigate there. All you have to type is Python main.py query. So what's the query that you're searching for in Google? How many pages would you like it to grab? And then what should the output file be? And what it will do is it will actually grab those pages of Google, and then it will scrape through the pages and pull out any email addresses for you and put them into a CSV spreadsheet. All right, so I just want to show you guys what would happen if we did this. So, pizza in San Francisco. This may or may not be good. Let's see. Let's see. You see, the awesome thing actually about like these types of techniques with small businesses, and is that typically they're very hard to get a hold of with paid acquisition. Like they're not really clicking on ads, etc. But you can email them, and they want to be found because they're small businesses. So their emails are usually on their websites. So we're just going to look. We're going to spam some pizza places real quick. So I'm already in the directory. I've already navigated there. Again, like just if. Is anybody here familiar with command line enough to like reproduce what I'm doing? Okay, so I'm probably going to have to try and piece together some tutorials and send that out so that you guys can get more comfortable. Take time. It'll make you feel like an engineering genius even when you're not. So I feel great right now.
Do you recommend a course, tutorial?
If you want to go deep on command line, I think command line the hard way. You know, there's this guy named Zed Shaw, learncothehardway.com, and he has tons of tutorials. He has Python, SQL, Ruby, and they're all really good. And they're deep indexes, and all of them are available free online if you're like willing to be patient, click through the HTML. You know what I'm saying? So I would definitely recommend it because you can do a lot of fun stuff. All right, so I'm trying to remember what was the. So I'm typing in the query. I'm going to put it in quotes here. What did I say? Pizza in San Francisco. Super original. Pizza in San Francisco, and then we'll just do pages 5, so that doesn't take a long time. But also the beautiful part about this, honestly, is that it does exactly what you need to do. So once you get the terminal part going, and by the way, like Ben, right? When I learned this, I literally just like Googled every single little thing, and that's basically what. By the way, once you become like an engineer or developer or whatever, that's still basically what it is. You think that like you're gonna learn it, and then you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I know that. No, it's not the case. Shit breaks all the time, and you just copy and paste it into Google and look for it. So honestly, like even when you know how to code, it's basically going to be the same idea.
Matt, before you run this, can you increase the font on the terminal?
This. You can tell I'm really good at terminal. I know how to zoom in. All right, so we're just going to call it emails.csv. So again, Python, just telling terminal to run a Python script. I'm naming the Python script it's supposed to run. I'm telling it what the query is, and I'm telling it how many pages and what the output file should look like. And basically, what those things are, when you do that, when you write that in the command line, those are called arguments. So certain scripts will ask for arguments or pieces of input into the app, and that's what that is. So I'm going to hit this, and what's going to happen is you can tell that it's running here. By the way, so if you scrape Google a lot from one place, they will know. They're really good at scraping and crawling. It's basically their thing. So if this starts like, so you see how it's kind of like hanging there and like rolling through, it's actually visiting the pages. If you do this a lot from the same location, it will like, you'll hit enter and it'll just like go straight down, and it will be like, oh, it didn't do anything, it didn't find anything. It's because Google's blocking you. And so if you were to actually look at what that looked like visually, it'd be like Google asking you to put in a CAPTCHA. So if you ever have like researched really hard and just copied and pasted it off of like Google's site, you might be shown a CAPTCHA. Just chill out for a minute after that happens, or like go to a coffee shop and get them kicked off Google. Something like that. So just like, you know, sometimes scraping, like a lesson in scraping is pacing. Pacing is a big deal. And in fact, one time at our shared office space when I was at Storefront, I got us kicked off of Yelp for about a month. So we were still able to do it with Tor browsers. We were still able to visit Yelp with Tor browsers, and then also people on their cell phones.
Suggest something like hide my ass, one of those IP
You know, so I don't have a ton of experience with proxies. I'm about to get to that next level. Andrew's probably going to talk about the fact that he is the founder of an awesome startup that makes it so you don't have to worry about that stuff, and I'm going to show you that.
I was just going to say, Hadmans is great.
Okay.
You can install it, and it's just a point and click install. If Matt had this installed, you just install it, turn it on, and then everything he'd be doing would be through one of those boxes. And keep changing. And if the IP address was on got blocked, you could just click the button that says refresh my IP.
Boom. Yeah. So there it is. There's the endorsement. And then the Andrew's piece of software, which is Import.io, and is in my course. A lot of the stuff that you do from them, they actually take the heat from Google instead of you, or take the heat from whatever site you're trying to scrape. Yeah, this is taking longer than I thought it was going to, guys. Wait for a second here. You know what I'm going to do is, while that's doing that, let's jump into import. And I'm excited about this because import's added some new features. So after I made the course, I had actually trained my team of virtual assistants in the Philippines to do all my scraping for me. So it actually, I had been a little bit rusty. One thing that's great about import and just the way that it works is it's basically a web browser where you go in and you select certain elements and you select different pieces of the site that you want to pull out. So a very structured site like Yelp, for instance, it's very easy because I can go to every Yelp page. It's structured exactly the same, and they do that so that Google can easily crawl their site, which means that you can also easily crawl their site, which is really, really nice. But I wanted to kind of expand beyond that and take a list of URLs and get information out of those URLs without them all being on the same platform. And so recently, Import has added in regular expressions in Xpath. Now, these are two slightly more advanced concepts. If you're going to continue to do scraping, I would absolutely recommend that you learn these things, especially regular expressions, because they're super cool, and you can actually use them in Google spreadsheets as well. And so let me show you kind of what those are. I'm going to first load one of these pages so you can see that. So I'm working with this startup right now that wants to go after e-commerce retailers that have a big social presence. So what I'm trying to accomplish with this is to find the social links from some of their sites so that I can look to see how many fans or whatever followers, whichever social network it is, and I can specifically target those folks when I'm looking for contact information. So I happen to have a list of Shopify URLs right here. So these are all folks on the Shopify platform. Shout out Jeremy in the background, also uses Shopify. All right, so import makes it really simple. You're going to navigate to the page, click detect optimal settings. So now it's going to ask me, is the data that I want still in the browser? And it is, because I'm actually just going to go after the HTML source code here. And I'm going to select single product page. So what I want to do here is, so normally what I would do is I would visually go through and select the elements that I want to take out of this page, assuming that all the pages that I'm also going to look at are the same, but that's not the case for this one. So let's say I want to focus first on Facebook links. Now this is where the XPath and the regex come into play, the regular expressions come into play, and it's going to be confusing to you if you've never used them before. But there's some great tutorials in W3 schools, and basically the way that you learn these is by trying this out and just like doing it and iterating over and over again. So basically this is an XPath expression right here. And that's really hard to see, isn't it? I'm just going to make it font. All right. So this is an Xpath expression, and basically what this statement says, so in HTML, if you've ever looked at source code in HTML, let's just do that real quick, actually, guys. It's the same site. Am I on the wrong site? They spelled stitch weird and wrong. All right, so we've got the off-brand of Pink Stitch. Pink Stick. Stick. All right, here. Okay, so now we're at the right page. So in Chrome, if you do Option Command U, you can take a look at the source code. And so you see how like there's this kind of nested thing happening here where there's indents? Basically, you write an Xpath expression to decide which of these elements that you select. So what we're doing in this example is just selecting all of the links on the page. So this, if you remember, Andrew, this is something I was asking about previously. Would I be able to just select everything on the page? And so now that there's Xpath here, I can. So I just put that in there, and what it's going to do is, again, select any links that it finds on the page. Now, that's a lot of different links, obviously. If we're looking at the source code here, it would basically be capturing all of those links. So what we want to do is refine that by using regular expressions. So regular expressions are also another like semi-confusing thing. One of those here too. So basically what it is, it's a set of characters that end up being a statement saying, hey, grab this and extract this from that body of text. That's about as simple as I can get it, but basically it's the basis for almost all search technology, to my knowledge. So I'm not going to be able to teach you regular expressions in this short amount of time, but you should definitely check them out. And this is a link that I'll send out. It's regxr.com, and this is my favorite one because it's very very nice and interactive. Although it's not showing it right here, most probably it's this. So it'll actually, like when you hover over it, it'll tell you what's happening with a particular set of characters, and it'll bunch them up for you, which is like one of the really tough parts about regular expressions. You kind of just glaze over when you see that huge long list there. So I've already written out some regular expressions. Let me turn those also into font 5000. Ooh. All right, so basically, obviously, all of the Twitter links start with Twitter, and then this actually what this says is period, and this is what's called an escaped character because period actually means any digit or any anything, could be any letter, any unit, whatever. You put a slash before it to say no, don't read it as that regex expression, read it as an actual period. So basically, this is going to pull out any twitter.com slash, and then the next, these brackets, what the brackets here say is that anything lowercase a through z, anything capital A through z, anything 0 through 9, it can also have a period in it. Again, that's an escape period right there, and it can also have it'll have a slash at the end. And then the plus sign says one or many of those. So it's a little bit confusing to wrap your mind around at first, but like I say, play with it, mess around with it, you'll start to figure out what it all means. And then again, if you're spending a lot of time in Google Sheets, you can use these for very, very powerful stuff. Like, say, like I have this list of URLs here on the side, and I want to remove all of the ends and just grab like the base domain. You can easily do that with regular expressions in Google Docs. This site right here, I think, is really great, as well as W3 Schools. So here's how I try to figure this type of stuff out. So I will do select all in the source code of the page to try and test it in here. So I'm pasting in all of the source code that I just found on that site, removing that. And I've already done, obviously, this legwork here, but just to show you what this looks like. I'm going to paste in the Twitter expression. It tells me you found a match. And again, if you cursor over, it tells you all of these different things, what they do, what they mean. It gives you definitions. It also gives you references, cheat sheets. There's other examples, so you can grab people's other examples and put them in this thing, and it's very interactive. It's awesome. The only thing I wish it did is I wish that it would scroll down to the exact location of where it found it. So you can see that it found the match right here, and it is the Twitter link for the brand. So that's fantastic, perfect for us. So yeah, again, sorry, this is a very complex subject, and some regular expressions it's ginormous and very complex. But you guys can get by with doing some basic stuff, and I'll share these afterwards. So the beautiful part of that is then now if I put that regular expression in here, I'm going to change this to Facebook because I labeled it as Facebook. It's going to find that Facebook there for me without me going through and selecting it at all. So now I can throw once I have this crawler built, I can throw whatever links I want in there. What's your opinion on this, Andrew?
I love it.
I texted him today saying I've bastardized your tool again. So this is not its intended purpose, but it's great. And then I get used to this process, right? So like I found it worked once, but that doesn't mean it's going to work every time. Sometimes you'll write a regular expression that's like really loose, and like you'll run this, and it'll show up with like 20 links in one of the categories because they put it slightly different in the source code. So when you're training a crawler, when you're using import, go through and practice this a couple times. Like in fact, one of these links actually has it so that instead of using Facebook.com, it's FB.com, which I didn't realize they could do. So I had to add another column and change it. The other thing I will say, one kind of frustrating thing about regular expressions is that everybody tends to use a slightly different flavor. So like some things that'll work in regexer might not work exactly how you want in import when you're using it. So again, you just kind of have to mess around and find your way through it. We got live tweets going on. Sorry.
You mentioned that you bastardized the tool. It's not what it's meant for. If it's not meant for this, what would it be meant for?
Well, so I mean, one of the founders is behind you. So after the Andrew over here. So after this, you could definitely ask him what it's used for. But it's an amazingly fantastic tool. It's not meant to just crawl random websites and pull out just chunks and pieces of information. That's like there are other tools that specifically do that. But what this is for is like say like when we would go to Yelp and crawl through Yelp, it's structured data already on the web, and you're selecting the elements. So you know it's like a repeatable process that you can do over and over again. And the brilliant part about it is that if you are technical, it actually builds an API to that data on the web. So for sites that don't have the resources and the infrastructure to have their own API, this is something that like your developers can continually query and pull data down from, etc. So there's a lot of different uses for the tool, to be honest with you. I mean, there's 3 different types of ways to extract information. Andrew can give you a ton of use cases. I found a bajillion use cases for it, and I continue to find more. I mean, I literally just figured this out like the other day, and I'm super excited about it. But let's go to real quick, and I'll hop around, guys. Let's just go check out what our terminal thing returned here. This could be totally blank. Embarrassing. Let's see. It's like 2-year-old now. This stuff takes some horsepower. Alright. I'm going to have to get rid of the secret sauce here. Okay, yeah, that's blank. I should have probably done an example that I knew was going to work. Celebrity game. Oh, it's still rolling. Never mind. That is also kind of disconcerting. What's going on? Woo! All right, we're going to try this with 1 page, and we'll see if that works. We'll come back to it. Has anybody here used import? I know Nate has, Phil has, Drake has. Anybody else? Okay, great. So this would be such a good learning experience for you guys. This is fantastic. You can thank me later. All right. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to add another page. What we're doing is we're training the system. Typically what we'd be doing right now is training the system to recognize patterns in the pages. But because we're actually dictating the patterns, it's a slightly different process. The beautiful part about this, again, is that they don't all have to be the same type of website. All right. So it's loaded the page, so I'm going to click on there, and what it's going to do is it's going to go through it again and look for those links as I instructed. One thing to note, so when I make these columns and I give it those commands, these advanced settings, basically, as it says, it's a manual override. Typically, what it's going to do is actually train those things for you. So to use this tool, you do not have to know Xpath or regular expressions. I kind of just thought that more people would have taken my course, being this semi-famous tech celeb that I am now. So I wanted to give you guys examples that weren't on the course. So, a little bit of a fail there. But like I said, you can go through a site like AngelList, any of these like online directories or like marketplaces are just totally prey for scraping. Fantastic. All right, so again, this is something that the platform does as well. It's like, did you get what you need? And this is a great time when you might see that, like, oh, it didn't grab the Twitter link that it was supposed to grab. Maybe my regular expression isn't written perfectly. So it's good to check the data, because instead of like doing this, training it, and running 1,000 URLs for it and having to come back and redo that again, you want to just be thorough up front. And once you have it built, that's the beautiful part, is that you don't have to do it again. All right, so I'm just going to keep adding pages here, and I'm going to go a little bit faster. If there are any questions while I'm doing lowly data entry?
Yeah, is there any functionality for like recording, like if you're on like a JavaScript site, if you can do like a mouse click to activate something? Do they have like
Yes.
a macro style recording, sliding stuff?
Yes. It's called a connector. And while I'm going, Andrew, if you'd like to explain a little bit more about what the connectors can be used for.
You answered the question really well. Yes. So you can
Nailed it.
interact. If the data you need is, sometimes there are scenarios where the data you need, you have to interact with the website, and you can record an example of interacting with the website to get the data you need, and then it will play back. So a really simple example of this would be if you want search results from like a search shopping website, and you want to put in like, I don't know, products from REI, and you search for tents, and you get all the tents. So cycles, get all the cycles, and you can record that with searching for like a macro.
No.
Very cool. Thanks.
The way Matt's using import for all this social stuff makes sense. It's probably one of our most creative. I love that.
Destructive. Read destructive. I skipped over it, but the last one, it actually got 2 results in the Facebook thing, which I actually love that it combines them, because I've been using some other crawlers lately, and they'll just make like 10 rows of the same website when they find all these other links, and it's been extremely painful. So that's why when I was like, I'm just going to try this in here and see if it works, and when I figured out that it did, it was a very joyous day for me. All right, one more, and then we'll see this puppy in a little bit more action. Any other questions?
What's the client using this for?
What's up?
What's the client using this for? So the client is a retailer?
It's creating a lead list. I mean, that's basically
Well,
like...
they're selling to retailers.
Yeah.
Selling to people who want to
Yeah,
shop
exactly.
online.
Yeah.
And they want to get their social handles and then use the social handles to message them.
Exactly. Well, not the social handles to message them, to rank them. So based on their follower.
Right, to create a rank for these lists based on followers.
Because, okay, so, for instance, we have a list of, like, say, 86,000 Etsy sellers.
Yeah.
So, like, we could spend a lot of money researching all of them, or figure out through a couple machine operated things much faster what ones would be good for us to reach out to.
Yeah.
So this is basically the only thing I can do anymore, is scrape leads and put them in an email program and send them out. So that's all people pay me for now. That's all I do. All right, so we've got 5 pages trained, which means import's going to be really happy. It's going to build a crawler here. Done training. Woo! Upload to import. Here we go. Social links. Rebel crawler. It's not what it's supposed to do. All right. Okay, so this is what it looks like after you've uploaded the settings to import. Here are the 5 pages that I trained it on. I always flip over to this advanced page so that I can mess around with some of the different settings. Page depth, what that means is if you're doing a true crawl, a lot of times when I use this tool, I'm like, here's the 1,000 pages specifically that I want to go to, so just only go to these pages. And in that case, I'll set it to 0. These days I'm a little bit lazier, so I find myself letting this thing crawl around on websites and find extra data for me in some cases. And the way that you do that is to write these kind of like statements down below. This is funny, I've never seen it like this, because I trained such like radically different websites, so it's suggesting something completely different. But usually what will happen is, like, say if I was on Yelp, it'll be like, it'll actually know what the Yelp pattern is, and it'll actually create a template right here for where the crawler should go, where it should extract data from, and where it shouldn't go. So if you crawl a site like Yelp very loosely, they have millions of pages. So this could go on forever. So you find ways to get very specific about the sites that you go to. This is in the course, so I'm sorry. It's in the course. This is a very hard subject to teach in 35 minutes. Yeah, that's what this stuff is here for. So now what I do in a situation like this where I know exactly where I want to go, a bunch of these are going to break. They're clearly like bad sites. But I'm just going to go like this, copy and paste. And this first thing, it says where to start, 1 page per line. And I don't need to do this, but I just do it because I'm so thorough. So I paste them all in, right? Because I want to tell this thing exactly where to go. Page depth, 0. It's not going to go to any other pages but those. When should we enable cookies and not enable cookies, Andrew? That's right, hot seat. Put you in the hot seat tonight.
If you need to, basically, some websites, if you want to crawl into the site, it needs to, and it'll pick up a cookie from like the home page, and then it'll hold on to that cookie so that it can get into deeper web pages.
Would you say it's better to enable it all the time?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if that's practice would be
Stump?
maybe. I'd leave that for this because you don't.
Yeah, let's play Stump the Founder.
Good question.
Yeah.
So, in the beginning, you were training it.
Yeah.
Like, how many do you have to train? How
In
many?
a crawler, 5.
Okay.
There's another thing that's called an extractor, which it will pull out like a single page. So if like you have a single page that's updating, such as like a leaderboard, stats, something like that, that would be 1 page that you have to train it. And then I think a connector is 2 pages, or 2 or 3.
To extract as many as you can always do more than the minimum,
Yeah.
but crawl is minimum is 5, connect is 2, and extract is 1.
And so once you're going through a page that's like very the same, and like it's not grabbing something you want it to, or it's kind of a weird formatting. Sometimes you have to train it longer than you normally would if it's very complex, or it's not like an easy pattern for it to recognize. So if you remember like the source code behind the scenes, like if it's nested between 2 nice containers and some developer was like very courteous and made it very clean and easy, it will have no problem recognizing all those things. Sometimes that's not the case, which is also why they added the manual Xpath and the manual regular expressions, so that you can be very particular about the stuff you get out, even if somebody didn't develop the web page really cleanly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
When you go through the course and you go through the examples, you'll see a lot better what it looks like when you're retraining the same pages over and over again. Do you have a question? You're just being very bad. I like it. All right, so here's some other settings. So there's a simultaneous pages. It used to go up to 10, I think. Now it goes down to 3 because you also want to be courteous to the people that are hosting their sites. If you're slamming them and loading 10 pages at the same time every other second, it can create quite the load on that server. And you'll also probably get yourself booted off. So if it's a big site like Yelp or etc., but like let's see. I got kicked off with anything else? No, Yelp is pretty much where I learned my lesson. But like say Yelp or like maybe AngelList or something else, they will shut off your IP or shut off your computer from being able to access it from that location that you're at. So just be courteous. And then how long to pause between pages? Again, like if you're having trouble, you're going to shut down. Increase the pause between pages. Lower the amount of simultaneous pages that you're loading at the same time. And all this is going to do is slow your crawl down. It's not, you're still going to get the data much faster than if you did it by hand or something like that, so don't worry about it too much. Where should this crawl? So again, we want to be very specific, so we're just going to paste in all those URLs. Where not to crawl? In this case, I'm not really worried about that. In some cases, if you're on like a particular site, when did I use this? So in the course is an example of like scraping Hacker News. And Hacker News and Reddit both do this thing. When you load the next page, they actually dynamically load like a token. And so that page address, when you're flipping through pages of results, changes, and it's different for everybody. So you've got to be very specific on those sites about where you're guiding the crawler to go to, and you'll see that in the course examples. But in this case, we're telling it exactly where to go. It's not going to crawl to any other pages, so we're not worried about that. And then where should it extract the data from? All of the pages we're telling it to go to. So boom, there we go. We've got it set up, and now we're just going to go.
Is there a limit to how many pages we can put in there?
I've never hit it. I think it's probably documented somewhere. Okay, maybe not. No. Cool. Dare you. So you get some stats up here. It'll
Probably some like memory capacity.
yeah. So it'll go by minutes. It'll tell you by minutes how long it should take, how many pages per hour, how many you queued up originally, how many requests it's made, how many were unavailable. Remember, we had a couple bad domains in there. How many failed? Again, there was some bad domains in there. And then how many of those rows actually converted into something. Boom. Now we're just going to upload the data and look at our results. So now we have the Twitter links, in some cases multiple links, from the brands that we're hoping to reach out to. And if you press that little plus sign there, you'll get to see kind of the mandatory data that import includes automatically. One is the source page URL, so which URL did it load and grab that data from. So that'll be in your data set. You now have the option to share this with other people. You have the option to download it into multiple formats, JSON, CSV, Excel, HTML. You can create a dashboard with it. You can integrate it into Google Docs. There's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with this. Yeah, and so the cool thing about this is once you've built a crawler, for instance, and done the exact process that I just did, you can just come back and click on the crawler again and add in your new URLs and just keep it going and get those social links out. Questions?
How would you use it to grab email address? Just
Boom.
set up your regex.
Yeah, email regex, brother. And there's a lot of examples of it. You just got to kind of test it out and make sure that it's working for you correctly. Regex is such a pain in the ass like that sometimes. Like you'll grab one from like a regex library online, or it'll work in this regexer site, and then you'll put it in import, or you put it in Google Docs. It doesn't quite work. So you just kind of mess with it and fool with it until it gets going. And then you can write it looser so it grabs more, and then clean it up later. There's a lot of different choices there, but that's a good question. And I've definitely done that too. Love that. Gateway to happiness.
So when you're ripping the Facebook fan pages, how are you then capturing the number, and then are you placing that in the spreadsheet?
So I'm not actually, there's this awesome new tool that just came out, Spreadsheet Booster, what I was talking about. It's fantastic. Basically what we're doing is we're making, I was trying to load the Google Doc later. I don't know if everybody towards the end of the day noticed that Google Doc is being a total piece of shit today, and it wouldn't let me load any of our pages. But this thing is awesome. So you type in, you add a script in the script editor. It's like it shows you how to walk through it. It's currently free as well, so you should definitely sign up for it. And then it will pull in external pieces of data into this spreadsheet. So we create a column first that's like Alexa, and we're trying to like determine like, okay, if they have a higher Alexa rank, they're probably more valuable to us because they're probably selling more on their site and in Facebook and email and all these other places. So we start with Alexa. So once we get our list and we get it all cleaned up and we have like the social links, we do an Alexa one. Well, actually, we do the Alexa one before we crawl for social links because we've got hundreds of thousands of domains that we're going after. So again, we want to prioritize. So we figure out the Alexa rank. Once we have that, we make our decisions. We sort by Alexa rank. Then we go out and get their social links. And then for like Facebook, you can get how many likes they have. You can get like how many people are talking about it right now. The We're Here one, which is like a check-in. There's like a couple different like weird things, and then website. And one thing we do to try and verify, without a visual, one thing we do to verify that we got the right Facebook page is in Google Docs. We do some regex and then try to match those two URLs, and it throws an error and creates like a red cell so that we know that like one of our virtual assistants in Odesk knows to go look at that and see, is it the right actual Facebook page that we pulled out? Because we may have crawled a blog that had like some random Facebook page from some other brand, right? So we try to match it up with what they have as the website on Facebook with the actual website that we got in the first place.
You mean the same URL and the same Facebook?
Yeah, so like if my, Jeremy, what's the name of your brand? Beck Boots. So if I'm on beckboots.com, I'm assuming that's the domain they have, and I pull out a bunch of Facebook links, and one of them is like Boots and More because they're like being nice to some other boot vendor and blogging about it or whatever. And then in the spreadsheet, I pull down Boots and More's Facebook the site that they have as their website and Facebook, and I try to match those. I'll be like, oh no, it's bootsandmore.com. That's not Beck Boots. And so then it'll turn red, and we'll look at it. And I can share a copy of that spreadsheet and how that works as well. There's some red X in there that I'm pretty proud of. At the time I wasn't. It was painful. But, you know, fun learning experience, guys. Just a fun learning experience. But yeah, this tool is awesome. And he's not charging for it. He's really responsive because sometimes, like, you know, if you have like errors or something like that, but it pulls data from all of these different places. It's pretty badass. So I definitely recommend it. If this stuff matters to you, this type of thing matters to you, for sure. This would be a good sequel to your blog post on Noah's site, and you can get some more other data.
Can you walk us through a few use cases of how you've made this stuff like work for
Yeah.
the companies that you've worked for?
Yep. Okay. Use cases. So in the course that I talk about, because like, you know, I'll tell you now, you probably won't fully understand it, but then you watch it later. So in the course, I did a couple different things. Because import has the 3 different types of like ways to extract data, I wanted to use an example of each. So one example I do is like competitive intel. So like the example is I'm Lyft and I'm like trying to spy on Uber or just keep an eye on them. So I do an extractor on their blog page, which will tell me what cities they're launching in. Really announced as if I could have set up a Google alert for that or something like that. But that's one of the examples that I do. With connectors, I think connectors are really cool because, say, for instance, if a really cool use case that I wanted to write about and I never did actually was, so if you're trying to get your articles shared into, say, like GrowthHackers.com or to Reddit or Hacker News or whatever, whichever sites like matter to you, what you can do is you can build a connector that will go to the site. It will search for the term that you want. So in your case, WordPress plugins or something like that, right? So searches WordPress plugins, and then you can bring back the results into a spreadsheet like that. So the results will come back looking like this, right? And so once you've built that connector, over here on the left side, you could search for like 3, 4, 5 different search terms. It will go out, do all those searches, pull back all the results that come back, tell you how many likes they got, or like karma votes, whatever the fuck that Reddit, like news hacker news stuff is. I do not go on these sites very often. It's really apparent when I talk about them in the course as well. So it'll pull down all these things. It'll pull down who the poster was and stuff like that. And then you can, like, after that, the possibilities are endless. I also showed an example of, like, if you find out that if you go to the top 100 page in Hacker News, you can crawl through all of the submissions ever that one of the top 100 people made. And if you find that they're posting a lot about like WordPress or what blogs they're going to, you can write a guest post and kind of play to their interests. You know, once you've like looked at all that, you play to their interests and get them to show you organically into the site. And that's like a huge coup, you know, because most people are like trying to game the system by like getting a bunch of people to upload stuff. But if you get one of these epic like top 100 people to share it in, then like, lots of people are going to like it. So that's an example, or you can just use it for data analysis. I think, you know, the example I just showed you, like Joel was asking, we can do that with emails. So if we get a list of WordPress sites, which I'm pretty sure we can do that pretty easily, you can roll through and grab emails for anybody that's on the WordPress platform. Do you guys, is it just WordPress.org that you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's, you can definitely get a big list of those folks going. That's an example.
How about scripting Google?
The tool doesn't work for scripting Google. Kind of a beast in itself trying to do that. But there are some solutions out there that do it, like that script I showed you that didn't work for me. Let's see if it did work, actually. It might do it. I might say it wrong.
What about pagination?
Oh yeah, it does that. For sure.
Let's do file downloads questions.
Yay, we got some, guys. Sick. So anyway, that thing works. It works really well. So we used it to do like just a simple leak building campaign, that second script that I showed you. So like, you know, you just have to mess around in Google and find like a good search query, like, and mess around with the Google search query, like different operators and stuff, and you'll find something good in there. So we used to do these little like hackathon things on Mondays, growth hacking, 15 minutes. And one of the we did competitions, and one of the competitions was who can get the most guest posts in 15 minutes. and I just fired that thing up, sent it to like 20 pages. It just ripped down a whole shitload of emails, fired them off in tout to all these people, and just crushed the competition. If anybody's in sales here, you can use a lot of this stuff to just demolish your teammates. And wait for like a week before you tell them how you did it. And you should tell them, you know, but like at first, just rub it in. Or just rub it in that you found out about it first. So, yeah. Any other questions?
This might be on the scope of this talk, but then what do you do? Okay, so
You feel like, could you teach us something in person instead of just talking about this course you're going to send us later?
No, so you get all the emails. What's the next step? So you email them, or you just use like MailChimp, or you
No, we're using, so specifically what we use was Tout, and there's a couple different softwares that do this. There's YesMail, Tout, Copilot, and essentially this is just one way to do it. And so what I would do is I would write extremely informal language, kind of like what I explained earlier. If I'm reaching out to these coffee shops and say, hey, I know you're in Soma, you know, whatever. And so you try to use language that makes it feel more personal and makes it feel like you're sending it like a friend a message. And Tout, for instance, allows you to send it to hundreds of people at once. But it feels like a one-to-one message. It feels more like you got an email from me, and I also emailed 99 other people, rather than MailChimp. MailChimp isn't really a good use for this, and you'll get booted off pretty quickly if people talk to you spam as well. So not like I don't think it's like a great activity for mail. It's kind of complex. Like it's not really complex, and you can figure out how to do it if you go to Tout. They have like a feature called Groups where you can upload a group of people just like this, and you can send them information. The way that you would do that is you would build a lead list in a spreadsheet. And so what we did is we had a column that was like neighborhood. So we were neighborhood. We tried doing something with like Yelp reviews, but it was like sometimes it's like this place is shitty, and that wasn't really helpful in the emails. So we never really messed with that. But like neighborhood was something that we could use to personalize. So if you're on some like say I think something interesting for this would be like if you're looking for a designer and you start scraping Dribble, you find like a search query that works really well for you, like for San Francisco or whatever, and you scrape through Dribble. You can reach out to people and use their link on Dribble. So hey, I came across your link on Dribble. Your shit is awesome, and then they'll never know that you sent that to 500 other people. And that's kind of how it works. But the really interesting thing is that sounds kind of bad, but I can guarantee you if you made me manually send emails to 500 people, they'd be way less personalized and way worse. Because I'd be copying and pasting stuff in. There's no way that I would go through the trouble of personalizing and adding in details. And the beautiful part about scraping is that you should be using all this extra information that somebody like Yelp or another site provides you as a way to personalize and focus just on your targets. You don't get any benefit from putting an email in somebody's inbox that doesn't want to hear from you at all, or shouldn't hear from you, I should say. A lot of people don't like sales emails, but they don't like ads either. So like what we do as marketers is we find a way to enter somebody's mind space, and if you do it in an elegant, like personalized manner, you're going to have much better results, and people are going to like you for it. And that does come down to your product and your company as well and what you're selling. But we had such good luck with this sort of thing. I mean, we would email these people and go, "Oh, this is so cool! Like I've never heard about this before." And it wasn't like it was no longer a sales call. It was just like, "Here's how you can use it to build your business." Beck Boots is going to do 10 pop-ups this next 6 months.
Can I just make a comment on that?
Yeah.
What Matt's saying is amazing. If you have product market fit, the best way you explain this to me is that if you have product market fit, then your biggest challenge is people knowing about it. And if you make your sales campaigns really targeted, they're like, yeah, I like that. But you describe people at the storefront who were sending these things out, and people were just like, do you want this? They're like, yes, we want this. We didn't know about it.
Yeah.
And so your challenge was not persuading them, it was just letting them know.
Totally.
So if you have product market fit and you can make it super targeted, you're pushing it over.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of customer development because I think that's how sales should operate in general. You should be asking a lot of questions and figuring out, like, how does this fit within the customer's realm? And if it's not a good fit for them, you can move on. You're not handling objections anymore, you're handling misconceptions. So if they're not like educated on your product and they're like, oh no, I don't want another this or that, and you're like, well, hold on, it's not exactly this or that, and here's why, and you help educate them, that's great. If they're like, really objecting to something and they're just like, you're fine, you are barking up the wrong tree. There's no reason for you to continue to like do that over and over again. Which is kind of like, it's a new thought in sales. I've been in sales for a long time, and the first job I had was a telemarketing one. It was just like, I'm not interested, like immediately. And like, oh, I totally understand, man. But you do want to do long distance, don't you? And then like 2 minutes later, they'd be like, yeah, I'll do long distance, but they didn't want it. So it's like, I think that getting the right message in front of people in a way that's like personalized, informal, and it's like got curiosity in it as well, people will react really well to it. And if they don't, it's just don't, it's like, okay, no problem, bro. It's all good. I've definitely had people be like, okay, I get it. You've emailed 5 people at my company. Quit spamming us. When can you come in for a meeting? So that stuff happens too. It's like a weird situation with stuff.